Alex, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So you are our youngest mentoring student we've ever had, and I talked to you, a little while ago, and I'm just floored because here you are. Are you out of high school yet?
I'm technically yes.
Technically yes. Okay, because you probably get some whatever advanced credits or whatever, and so you probably are. Okay, well that's pretty cool. Well, you're a great example of someone who obviously doesn't have any previous experience. You don't necessarily have a rich uncle either. So you're getting started with this, and you joined a mentoring program, which is a significant investment. But we're going to talk about that a little bit, why you did that, especially at this juncture, when most people wait a few years. They have to get a few years of painful W-2 job under their belt before they go, oh my gosh, I can't do that for the next 30 years. And It was a little different for you. Now talk a little bit about your background. So. How did you first get the idea of real estate? How did that come about?
Yeah. So I've always been pretty entrepreneurial, if you will. Always trying to think of creative ways to make money and, grow business, because I'm very business oriented. So I've always wanted to have a business.
Where does that come from? Is that you just kind of came out of the womb like that, or are you surrounded by other entrepreneurs?
I want to say I came out of the womb like that, because that's not really been like. Yeah, I was very lucky to be born with that.
Well, that's amazing, because I'm a born entrepreneur, but I didn't realize it until it was my mid-30s. Like it was like latent, And with you just go like, are you growing up like, oh, I must start a new business. So okay, all right. So what did you do early on? Like, how did that manifest itself?
Well, how far back do you want me to go? Because I can go back to like 8 years old making a lemonade stand.
All right, we'll start there. I love that.
Well, that was pretty much the extent of the story.
Yeah.
But I'd say it really started to pick up probably I want to say 3-4 years ago. And I'm really good with numbers and math and stuff like that. So I've been working for my parents doing bookkeeping and stuff like that. So I really built my spreadsheet number crunching skills. And at one point I thought I wanted to be a day trader, right? Everyone wants to be a day trader at some point. And then I realized, sitting in front of a computer all day, it drives me nuts, because I'm also a people person. And so I like people and I like business. And so I like a business where I have people there.
Yeah.
And so
spreadsheets won't necessarily do that. I get that. Now, quick question. Why were you doing spreadsheets for your parents? Are they entrepreneurs, business owners, or tell me a little bit about your parents?
Yes. My parents own a restaurant in little quaint Stuart, Florida.
Okay. And so you were doing some of the books for them at the time. Cool.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So obviously figured out day trading wasn't for me. And I was telling you a little while ago that I go on book binging. I just buy a bunch of books on Amazon every once in a while because I love reading. And so I ended up coming across your book, the fancy yellow book. And I'm going to be honest, it sat on my shelf for a little while just because I never got to it. And when I picked up the book, I was kind of on a little real estate kick, like trying to learn, because that's what I wanted to do. I saw myself doing that in the future. And I picked up the book and read it in a day. It totally blew me away. I was not expecting to be able to do what I wanted to do so soon, because I always had the preconceived notion, you need so much money to get into real estate that it doesn't make sense until way later on. And so here I am today, knowing that you can get into real estate without a lot of money and without a lot of experience.
So, and this is great because, you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, probably one of the first books you've read. And, and I found that that's what my experience has been, is that you read this book and it plants this crazy seed of passive income in your brain. You're like, oh, passive income, that's the coolest thing. And of course, Robert Kiyosaki talks about cash flow business and the cash flow quadrant and real estate. Right. But what he fails to tell you is, well, how to actually, what kind of cash flow business and what kind of real estate, right? So it's left to the reader to figure out. Well, most readers, they're watching HGTV, flip this house, flip that house, flip every house. They're on bigger pockets and the Burr method, right? So everyone's thinking, I'm going to start flipping houses. I'm going to landlord, right? And somehow we got to you before then, which is really cool. Now, what led you to believe that you could actually skip that step?
Well, funny enough, for a couple of weeks before I picked up your book, I was actually learning about flipping, and I was considering doing that. But once I picked up the book, I said, there is no way I am going to be doing flipping. Not a chance in the world. I need to be a syndicator.
So, okay, that's pretty interesting. And you jumped through various mindset hoops pretty rapidly, which is pretty amazing because you're still young and adaptable, so it's kind of cool. So you but you skipped a few steps there because it takes a lot of people sometimes years to figure that out. And one of the, we talked about flipping houses because it's what everybody does. Every meetup talks about flipping houses. And the problem is when you shift to apartment buildings, okay, when you say, hey, Alex, you should skip the house flipping stuff because the real money is made with apartments, right? And the biggest objection that pops up in people's minds is, well, that's great, Michael, but I don't have the experience. Let me get some. I don't have the money. Let me get some, by basically investing in single family houses for 5 or 10 years, and then I'll come back to it. And I found also that before you can take any kind of action, you have to believe that you can do something, right? Because if you don't believe you can do something, why would you ever take a step in that direction? It's pointless. So what made you believe? Now I know you read the book, and so brainwashing at work, I love that. But what made you believe that you, 18-year-old Alex, can actually become a syndicator without any previous experience?
Well, I think what I would say, my number one thing is that because I'm so young, I have so much less, I'll call it baggage behind me. So I don't really have many experiences that would point to something saying, yeah, you can't do that. And I've also that's kind of just who I am. I've been very lucky to have that kind of mentality. I guess it might've been my parents raised me that way, I guess.
I give no credit to your parents, but yes, they probably did.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I think that I just ended up thinking, I can do this. I can achieve anything that I want. Now, I'm lucky, as I already said. There are many people who don't think that. And I wish that everyone thought that, because everyone would prosper so much more if everyone just had the mentality that I can do whatever I want to do.
Yeah, you just said something. You don't have any baggage. I think this is a real thing. I think as the older you get, two things happen. One is you become less optimistic, right? If you talk to 10-year-olds, whatever, even some teenagers, the world is their oyster. Everything is ideal. They know everything, of course. And the world is really cool. Everything makes perfect sense, and they're basically on top of the world. And then they get into life, and all of a sudden life throws them curveballs, and it rattles them. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought the world was perfect. All of a sudden it doesn't make sense to me anymore. And you acquire a certain amount of baggage. And I find interesting that you said you don't have any baggage. And so the people watching this who are a little older who might have some baggage, they have this extra step that they have to unlearn things or put away with things. And you didn't maybe have that as much, which is great. You're like, this is great. And you didn't have that. But from a mindset perspective, there's a lot of limiting and false beliefs that people have. And I think that's one advantage of young people is, they're just happy-go-lucky, which, by the way, I used to be happy-go-lucky, which is also a downside of that. Which means, of course, nothing can ever go wrong, right? So, and people who are a little more experienced kind of have, they're like, oh, what can go wrong?
And I think that I want to say that a lot of the baggage and all those things that block people's minds most of the time is just from past experiences where people are always told no. So from a child or, going on, there's always a million things where your parents say no, your teachers say no, people around you tell you no, that you can't do to certain things, and you bring that along with you. And so eventually when you get to something that you totally can do, you think you can't do it because you've got this thing in your head that's telling you, no, you can't do that.
So what you're saying is that baggage starts very early on in life. It doesn't start, until you're 25. It can start early on when grownups tell you there's something you can't do. And you're like, no, I can do that. Now the difference is you picked something really big. Right. It's not like, oh yeah, I can dig that hole. It's like, hey, I can be a syndicator. Right. That's pretty cool. Now, why did you? So you're 18 years old. You're technically done. Why did you not pursue college like everybody else around you?
Well, it was kind of something that drifted over time. So originally, I was like, okay, I'll go to college. I wasn't exactly sure what path I wanted to pursue, and I think that helped in deciding for me that I wasn't ready to go to college, because I'm now of the belief that if you don't know what you should do for college, you should wait or not go to college at all. Because if you're going to go to college just to go to college, that's a waste of money and a waste of time, in my opinion.
Well,
and so
you're certainly entitled to your opinion. A lot of people disagree with you on that, and
of course.
But I mean, I actually happen to agree with you that if you don't have a plan for college, why make your parents spend $100+ grand on you to figure out your life?
Definitely.
But on the other hand, you got to figure out life, right? So I mean, the other counter argument is that college, encourages independent living, independent thinking, exposes you to other perspectives. Therefore, it actually helps you figure out your life. So if you're not going to college, now you're at home all day on Zoom calls all day. You never go to parties. It's a sad life for a teenager, right? So how do you figure out your life?
I was never cool enough for parties.
What's that?
I was never cool enough to get invited to parties.
So it helps to be uncool. Yeah, but still, you got the social aspect that you don't get through college. And, how do you then figure out your life? Should you go right into the, working world? Are you skipping a stage of your life, or is it all baloney?
Well, I'd say that you have to kind of create situations that simulate college if you're not going to go to college. So situations where you're around a lot of people, so you have to network and meet new people, because obviously that's kind of a lot of what college is, meeting new people. And the living on your own aspect, maybe you do things on your own. You try and figure things out. If you have to, maybe move out. Those are all things that you kind of want to simulate college if you're not going to go to college, because that is the one aspect I would say that people are right about, is it does teach you how to live by yourself. And if you don't get that, you're kind of at a disadvantage. Yeah.
So one of the things I've found when I first started one of my own is that my friends and family were not the most supportive, right? Because you're going off the deep end, it will clearly end in catastrophic failure. And so how do your friends react to your decision?
Well, I would say that actually a lot of my friends totally understood. And some of my friends are doing the same thing as me, not necessarily pursuing real estate, but not going to college. My parents were definitely a big help. My mom is like totally on board. She's like, yeah, don't go to college. You got this. My dad is a little bit different, but he was also supportive about it. So I'm lucky to have parents like that, because I know a lot of people have very strict parents, in the sense that it's more, no, you're going to college because I said so.
Oh, so what are you doing right now? Are you finishing up school? Are you doing school? Like, how are you spending your days?
Well, I pretty much fully devote my time now to learning and networking, because I finished school.
You're finished school. So why networking?
Because I see the value in meeting people and creating relationships for the future. And also because I want to pursue syndication. It's very, very difficult to do it without meeting people, because it's a relationship-based business and a trust-based business. So whether you are on either side, so if you're raising money, you need to network with investors. If you're asset managing, you need to talk to your property manager, lender, insurance, all those. So it's really all about building trust with people.
So you're looking for people to put on your team. You're looking for capital. Anyone else that you're looking to network with?
People to partner with. I understand. I know you've said this in the past, that partnering is it's a way to get a bigger deal faster. And I'd like to do that, because, I want to remove all the stops and go all in, but I need someone else's experience and help to do that, because even though I have no experience, it's still good to have someone to go with you on the journey.
Yeah. So now so we're talking about networking, and now why did you sign up for mentoring? Exactly. Because here's the thing. I used to be young like you, and maybe I was a little more arrogant than you were. I also had more money. This was when I was like 25 years old. I went through a software IPO, had a bunch of money, and and then I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was like, man, I got to get me some passive income, and just like that. And so I just went into business all by myself. I never even bothered to get a mentor. And that was a catastrophic failure. Subsequently lost everything. Now, why did you get a mentor? Is that something that someone advised you? You just said, hey, this is a great thing to do. And it's also not inexpensive, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm just going to go get a mentor at the local 7-Eleven. So why did you get a mentor?
Well, I will say it was a big step, because even for someone like me, it was still hard to say, well, you can't do this on your own. You should probably seek help. And so naturally, I wanted to just pursue it by myself. I'm thinking, well, if I don't partner with anyone, I get more equity, which means I get more money. And if I don't get a mentorship, then I save money, right? But I think it's more thinking long term. And so I had been hearing lots and lots of people reading books and watching videos, people all saying mentorship is the way to go. You should have someone to push you and to help you so that you make less mistakes. And so I started to see the value in it, and it was a big trigger to pull, but I pulled the trigger and I said, this is what I need. This is right for me.
What did your parents think of that? I mean, the other question is, how did you afford it? Did you have money saved up? Did your parents help out?
I had money saved up. My grandpa left me like a little bit of money. It wasn't a crazy amount of money. Like, I'm not sitting on millions, although it would be nice. But so it was really money set aside for college. And I guess because I didn't go to college, it made sense to pursue it on another learning opportunity. And so once again, my mom was like 110% on board. So that was great. It took a little bit of convincing with my dad, but he also got on board now.
Yeah, so maybe he's a little bit more traditional. My wife's a little more traditional. I'm a little bit more, hey, let's do what makes sense, and it may not be college. And so, the bottom line is it just requires a conversation, right? Which is what sounds like what you had. So it's almost as cool. It's almost like syndication mentoring as a substitute for college. I love that. I think more people should look at, hey, what do you want to do? And then take those classes, take that mentorship for whatever you want to do. And, look, if you want to be an attorney or a doctor, okay, you got to go to college, right? There's no, course you can take online, or sign up with some kind of mentor to help you become a doctor. You got to go to school. All right, I get that. But be clear about what you want. And actually, I forgot to ask you this. What do you want? I mean, the solution was real estate, syndication, passive income, but why? What is it? Is there a particular lifestyle that you're after?
Well, obviously, I've done enough learning and listening to podcasts that I know that sitting on the beach for the rest of my life is not where I want to be, right? I would like to live a life of significance that you were talking about a couple episodes ago. And so what I love, and I've developed my personal why statement. So I know why. It is to lead others to freedom so that together we can positively impact our world. And so I love teaching and I love leading because it's just one of those principles that's been ingrained in me. And so I would love to use resources from, building resources from real estate to go and teach other people how to do the same and how to, break out of the system, because everyone has a job. And everyone seems to be chained, and that's not fun. Yeah. So I'd love to teach people how to go along that path.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great why right out of the gate. That's amazing. Back to mentorship. I mean, how are you going to get the most out of your mentorship, right? So you're working full time with a syndicator who owns upwards of 500, 1,000 units, and how do you feel how you get the most out of that working with that person?
Well, so on the past few calls, because we do weekly calls, bi-weekly calls, we've kind of just been going over like next steps. So kind of planning what the future is going to look like. And so I will do something, we'll check in, and then set up the next couple of weeks to see what that looks like. So this past couple of weeks, it's really been setting up for talking to investors, because that's something I haven't done yet. I haven't spoken to any investors or potential investors yet. And so I'm really leveraging my mentor's knowledge to go into these conversations already knowing what I need to say, instead of trying to figure it out and then, messing up the first few conversations. I go in with a fresh perspective because it's, something I've never done before.
Yeah, I think there's kind of two phases of mentorships. One is kind of the setup, the learning, and the practicing, right? So I think what he has you doing now is just talking to people probably that you already know, and who may not be in a position to invest, and it doesn't matter, because it's all about the activity and getting practice, not so much about the actual outcome. Once you do it for a month or two, at that point it shifts and you become more competent, more confident, and that's when you can start talking to newer people and things of that nature. And the real value of a mentor really is when you get close to a live deal. Like, that's where the value of a mentor really shines, because you're about to make an offer, you're about to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you're like, man, I want to make sure I've got this right. What am I missing, right? So the value of the mentor really helps in that respect. Also to help really in trying to get your mindset right if you're thinking small, for example, right? If you're dealing with someone who's got 1,000 unit portfolio and you're hemming and hawing over a 5 unit, they're going to go, come on, Alex, you can do a little better than a 5, can't you? And you're like, oh, maybe, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And I think that that kind of reminds me, there's this quote about mentorship that I really like. And it goes, a fool never learns from his mistakes. a smart person learns from his mistakes and a wise person learns from the mistakes of others.
Yeah.
I have no idea where that quote came from, but that's just my favorite quote, because I strive to learn how to be wise. So I want to learn from the mistakes of my mentor rather than going and making stupid mistakes of my own.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. And I made plenty of mistakes, and had I had a mentor, I would have been able to avoid all that stuff. And also you get these ideas from people who are experienced that it would take you months to figure out that same. I've made that experience more than a couple times, is talking to people who are at a different level, and you're like, you can do what? How? You're like, this blows my mind right now. So yeah, so that's pretty cool that you have ability to work with someone like that. And so what we're going to do, we're going to do a grand experiment on you, Alex, which of course will flop miserably if you never get a deal done. Now, so here's a big question. Your interview, Alex, do you have what it takes?
I have more than what it takes, Michael. I'm 100% all in.
Yeah. Okay, tell me more.
Well, what more do you want? What do you want to know?
Well, I want to know if I should air this podcast, right? So if you're listening to this right now, then obviously I decided Alex has what it takes, and we're going to follow you along. But, like, for example, you have a very strong why, you have some motivation there, but after about 2 or 3 months, it gets a little tedious. You're doing the same thing over. You're just analyzing another deal. You're talking to another investor, and maybe you don't have anything to show for. None of the deals are penciling. All the whatever. You're just disappointed, discouraged, right? And it's very easy to crawl back into the shell that you came from, whatever, and just say, hey, maybe this works for others, but it doesn't work for me. And so, when you're having a bad day, imagine yourself getting up and you've had a discouraging day the last couple of days, whatever. And what's going to keep you going and keep hitting the phones?
I want to say that having my why is really what kind of pushes me forward, because I know what I want, and I'm able to think more long-term when I look at it from a purpose perspective, rather than, oh, well, I'm not making money right now because I don't have a deal. Well, money will come after, your purpose is fulfilled. And so I think consistency is really what really matters to me, even though I might, in 3 months feel like drudging because I'm not getting anything done. I feel like I'm doing the same thing every day. I think consistency and doing it every single day, even if I don't want to, that's what's really going to get me from 0 to 1 deals done.
You know what? I didn't even tell you to say that, but that's exactly right, Alex. It's consistency that is the secret of success. I had Grant Cardone on the podcast last year, I think, and I asked him, hey, what's your secret to success? And I thought he'd say, well, my plane and my Bentley. No, he literally said consistency, which I was a bit surprised by, because consistency is not a very exciting thing. It's like you're doing the tedious thing every single day without any potential outcome for success, and you do it anyway. And that's exactly right. So if you can stay consistent, anyone listening to this, that is the thing, is consistency, doing things that may be tedious or boring or repetitive or possibly even hopeless. And there's a great book by Hal Elrod called The Miracle Equation. And if you've read that one, read that one, because he redefines goal setting. Because normally we're taught that, goals have to be smart. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, right? And that it's almost correct. The problem with a time-based one is that we set deadlines. And, if you're doing something small, like I'm going to go to the grocery store today. Well, okay, that's probably a very achievable goal you can do today because you control the outcome. You go to the car, you go to the grocery store, and blah, blah. But if your outcome is I'm going to do my first deal, you don't control the timing of that outcome because there's too many variables outside of your control. I mean, there's a little bit of good luck and bad luck involved, right? You could have your next deal tomorrow. It could be in 13 months from now, right? So the only thing that Hal argues you can do is control the activity that you do. And that you control. You can say, I'm going to make 5 phone calls. I'm going to do 3 emails. I'm going to talk to 1 person, right? So you control that activity. You don't control the outcome. So you can't say, well, you can say anything you want, but you can't insist on, hey, I'm going to have my first deal by the end of the year. Well, how do you know? Like, it's not really a realistic goal. And worse, let's say the end of the year comes and goes and you haven't done your first deal, right? A lot of people become discouraged. They're like, oh, I gave myself 6 months, end of the year, and now it's here, and I'm a loser, and they give up. Versus, you know what, I'm going to commit to analyzing 1-2 deals every quarter, every single week, and I'm going to talk to 1 investor every single week. I'm just going to do that, just blindly, do it. And if you do that, my gosh, if it takes 6 months, great. If it takes 18 months, who cares? because you know that those activities will lead to an outcome. And I think that's really powerful. So I think if you can do that, even on the bad days, you will get through that because you will eventually get that outcome. So that's pretty cool. Here's what we're going to do, Alex, since it sounds like maybe you passed muster and this might actually air. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do kind of a grand experiment where we're going to follow you along, kind of like reality TV show. And we're going to post whatever you do. You're going to record yourself, and you're going to talk into the camera, talk to the audience. Hey, today I had a really cool day. I visited a property. Right? Today I had kind of a bad day. I don't really feel like getting out of bed. Here's what happened. So it's going to be kind of the raw journey of a syndicator is literally starting from scratch. Okay, and this is what I love that. And we picked you because you're so daggone young. Right? Yeah, there's a lot of people you can say, well, if you're 35 years old, you can borrow your track record from your last 15 years. You have a network, you have some resources. You don't really have any of that. And worse, you're super young, and who in the world is going to actually take you seriously? Because you look like you're 12. Right? Okay, so perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, the thing is, if you can do it, anyone can do it. And age doesn't matter. And what the lesson here is that you will find, everyone listening to this is going to find, is it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much money you don't have, what experience you have, what you don't have. It doesn't really matter, right? You just need a strong why and a certain degree of hustle, which you have. And so we're just going to follow you along. And we're gonna post stuff on our social media channels. It'll be on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, God forbid, and so we're just going to follow you along, kind of like in real time, and see how you're doing and watch you. So why did you think that was a good idea, Alex?
I think it's more of an accountability project. It's good to teach others, but it's also going to keep me accountable very well because, God forbid, you let down thousands of people, right? So, but not only that, because of my why is more aligned with teaching, I love teaching people. And so if one other person, even if just one other person says, I want to do that and I'm going to follow Alex because he's doing that, then that's a win for me.
Yeah, I love that. What concerns do you have?
Well, I'd say my concerns are probably time frame, that, maybe I'm making videos for a crazy amount of time and I just still have nothing to show for it. Like we were just saying with the goals.
Well, look, you're going to have a pretty big audience watching you. And it's going to be interesting because, the day you say, I quit, I'm done. That's a tough decision to make. And this is why I love accountability partners, right? The more accountability partners you have, the harder it is to quit. Like if you had a partner, or let's say you're married, right? You're married and, you're like, well, honey, I'm going to quit. I'm going to go back to a job, And what the plan was becoming, getting her out of a job and getting you out of a job. Well, you got to let her down. If you have a big mission, where, we had one guy who was talking about he wanted to start his own school. And that was something that was really, you need money for that. And you can't have a full-time job for it. So if he fails, he's going to impact dozens, if not hundreds of kids that he now can't reach because he can't have a school. And so that puts a lot of, good pressure on you. I think that's great. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So to keep up with Alex's journey, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and then subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that's where you can track what Alex is up to, how he's feeling, struggles, breakthroughs, highs and lows, you name it. We're going to bring it to you on our social profile. So Alex, thank you so much for joining us here today. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael.